Right, okay, so Bridge and Fields. Today's workshop, we're going to be focusing on what we call in participatory action research. And I'm actually joined by Robert, who's in the audience, who's done research with me on this area. So he'll be sharing some of his insights later. But just for those of you who don't know, Bridge and Fields, we're aiming to train up 200 plus researchers in working effectively with farmers and growers in all sorts of research and innovation projects. And it was kindly brought about by funding from the Rothschild Foundation in recognition that there's lots of funding to support farmer-led innovation and farmer-centric work, but quite a lot of the academic community felt they didn't have the skills and confidence to do research in this way. So it's for all UK-based researchers, all different institutions, all disciplines and backgrounds welcome, and all levels and experience, right from sort of PhD students right through to experienced professors. Why do we even care about farm-centric and farm-led research? Well, me and Emmanuel are pretty biased, but not only do we think it's the right thing to do, if we're going to be doing research in the food system around farm production, whether it's animal-based or crop-based or something else, and we want to create an impact, then it's the ethical thing to do to include those that this research is going to impact. Farmers have great ideas and expertise, don't you, Robert? In the audience. And it's about diversity of knowledge and all brains working on these complex issues that we see facing society. And increasingly, it will help you to work with farmers due to funding requirements. So the policy circles are kind of talking more about these kind of approaches, and the funders are as well. We hear quite a lot around the term transdisciplinary now. It's moving on beyond interdisciplinary. So not just keeping research in academic institutions, but involving the wider community and society so we actually create change where needed. So that's where we're coming from. You would have seen this horrendous slide quite a lot, but we spoke to lots of you at the start of this programme to understand what you kind of wanted, what sort of training and development opportunities. So we've been doing these deep dive residencies overnight at the RAU that we started this summer, but we're also doing these online workshops, and we're doing a bit of a roadshow of events around the country starting next year. So if this is the first you've heard of it, make sure you're on the mailing list so you can hear about what's happening. So I mentioned these residencies. We've had our first one, tick, which we'll tell you a little bit about. And I think maybe some of you are there, so we'll pick on you later. But we've got 4 more happening next year, and we've opened registration of interest for the one in January. So it's basically a 2-night, 3-day deep immersion into the pressing issues, research needs from the farming community. And we had a bit of a cluster of requests to do stuff around sort of bigger food systems and telling the story of research and what's going on in farming, the good news stories. So that's the one in January. So if you are interested in that, register your interest. And then these are the dates for the subsequent ones. Here's a photo from the residency this summer. We had just shy of 25 academics from all across the country, from historians and geographers to plant physiologists and geochemists and everything in between, all interested in regenerative agriculture and soil health. So we had a series of farm visits and workshops, and I'm sure any that are here from that will share their experiences later. But what we're aiming to do is help academics feel more confident collaborating with farmers and growers, help you able to co-design and co-produce knowledge with farmers, so trying to make this research much more relevant and useful on the ground. And hopefully you'll experience a bit of a mindset shift in how to approach these things. So instead of research coming up with all the answers and then wondering why no one adopts it, actually starting from the ground up. So past things we looked about, past workshops, we worked on co-designing projects, some like key top tips, and we heard from those in the industry about working with gatekeepers, seeking out farming events and trying to engage with the farming community at an early stage, asking questions, not coming with all the answers, and embracing the mess that some of these more bottom-up participatory approaches can entail. So this horrendous slide was an example of some of the gatekeepers you can reach out to, and we introduced some in the past, but we can connect you up with some of these groups as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about working with gatekeepers today. But the aim of this workshop is to share key principles and top tips for doing participatory action research with farmers. So you'll hear a bit from me and Emmanuel, who adopted this as a bit of an approach, and also from Robert, who's a dairy farmer up the road from us here in Fire and Sister near Highworth, and he'll tell his honest opinions of working with researchers. So by the end of it, you'll know a bit more what participatory action research is, how it relates to what you do, and hopefully have a bit of time to develop a bit of a project using this approach to tackle some of the major issues they're facing farmers today. So this was a bit of an introduction. We'll have a little bit of a warm up to see who's in the virtual room in a second. So if your microphone's not working, just make sure you can use the chat. If that doesn't work, then we'll have to think of another option. But we'll ask you to speak out as well. And then we've got some quick presentations from me and Emmanuel, some time for Q&A, and then a bit of discussion after a break. And then we're going to put you into breakout groups to work in smaller sort of 3s and 4s to develop a bit of a proposal around a scenario that we're going to give you. And then we'll have a bit of discussion and wrap up by 3 p.m. As I said in past workshops, bit of ground rules. We're all coming from different walks of life and different disciplines and different understandings of what these things are, but just maintain respect at all times. Try and put yourself in other people's shoes, and engage those active listening skills. I'm sure you'll all do that. I sometimes feel like it's granny teaching sucking eggs when I say these things, but right. So warm up. I used to call these icebreakers, but scared everyone to death. So we've got quite a few of you on the call, which is exciting, but we'll try and keep this short and sweet. And I'll just pick people as they come up on my screen. If you just say your name, role, where you work, what your main discipline is, and either what you've learned so far in Bridging Fields, if you've been on this journey with us for a little while, or what you're hoping to get out of today, particularly. Okay. So who's first on? Natasha, you're first on my screen, if you'd like to go.
Hello everyone, I'm Natasha. I'm a social scientist at the Rural Policy Centre, which is part of Scotland Rural College. So I mainly work in Scotland. I've got a background which focused on game management and forestry. So farming is something that I haven't done loads on, although I live in a rural community. So this is why I thought it'd be very useful for me and to feed back to my team. So thank you for putting this on.
Amazing. Thanks, Tasha. Tala?
Hi, my name is Tala. I'm a PhD student with the UK Food Systems CDT. My project is mainly working on climate scenarios with wheat and blackgrass, so I'm trying to compete that. As part of my project, I also want to talk to farmers and, get their perceptions around this. So, getting to know part of how to do action with them and, how to actually approach them and speak to them and get the most out of it is very helpful for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline Aitken, and I'm sort of halfway through my first year of my PhD at the Centre for Rural Policy Research in Exeter. And my area of interest is the sociology and politics of agroecology, and I'm particularly looking at agroecology livelihoods. And so I'm just doing my research design now, and I'm really interested in PAR because I was formerly a farmer myself, and very much coming from it as part of the agroecology community. So, yeah.
Amazing. Welcome. Thank you. Hannah. Well, I should check if we've got more than Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Kenway. I am a farm vet. I'm in practice on the Isle of Wight. I live and farm on the Isle of Wight as well. And I also lecture at Surrey Vet School. That's what I've been doing 4 days a week for the last 2 years. And I've just started a PhD in systems thinking, developing systems thinking approaches to One Health. So I don't really know what I am at the moment, bits of everything. And I'm really interested in the research methods. So I do a lot of connecting with farmers because that's where I live and work, but I'm not so much a researcher.
Oh, welcome, many hats. And I don't think we've had someone from Isle of Wight yet, so welcome. Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice. I've just finished my PhD and currently doing a brief postdoc. I'm at the University of Cambridge, and I'm a plant physiologist. So I have studied photosynthesis the last few years. But I'm interested in doing some more applied research and working
Really
more
struggling with
like with
names
on the ground tangible solutions for pressing problems. So yeah, this is my first session, so excited to see what everyone talks about.
Thanks, team. Welcome.
Good.
Marie.
That's good, went well. I really liked it.
They're a good bunch, aren't they?
Let me turn my hopefully
I do feel like
audio.
Yep, into the converter
Excellent.
sometimes.
Rika Lee, Harvard University.
I don't
Senior
think
lecturer
so.
in animal science. My
No.
research interests are the circular economy and reducing agricultural residues.
Yeah.
And
I don't think there was lots of a fair few PhD students there, and and just generally, and some people do maybe a similar kind of thing for us social scientists, but then you always have the different contexts and scenarios, don't you? The team may not have come across. So I don't think it's.
am currently.
I don't think they would have attended. They would have attended if they didn't think there was something.
Different partnerships across the UK run by UKRI, and that's in partnership with the University of Reading and Waitrose. Waitrose have made a regenerative commitment, and so I do all things regen ag to try and unpick that and understand what that looks like.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was going to turn up, but
similar
so that's good.
to Hannah, well, I'm from a family farm background, and so familiar with farmers and work.
Could you hear me? By the way, could you hear my speech? Okay.
Stop
recording, Lisa. Side of things and the more academic approach to engaging with farmers. So yeah, I have to leave slightly early, but I will watch it back because I'm very excited.
Stop. Thanks for joining in.
Great my speech didn't.
Kat of our own. Unless I know you're having technical.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's working.
Oh, that is fabulous. Hi, everyone. My name is Kat Watson. I am an animal scientist and I work with Lisa at the Royal Agricultural University. I've recently completed a project, a co-design project with farmers and industry. So part of my role today is give you a quick review of how that went, but I'm also here to learn a bit more. I've done one or two other activities with the Bridging Fields before, and I'm relatively clued up on what's going on, but it's really a great opportunity for me too to learn some more.
Brilliant, thanks, Kat. Susan.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Kilby. I'm a researcher at the Institute for Name Studies at the University of Nottingham. Some of you might have met my colleague Jane Carroll, who came on a residential in the summer. We've been working with farmers, mostly in Shropshire, looking at their field names, both current and historical, to think about how they can help with things like regenerative farming, so looking at habitat recreation and that kind of thing. We also work with them on an educational basis as well, helping them to create teaching resources and resources for tourism. So this is my first time in this group, and I'm just hoping to see how our research might be able to connect with people from other academic organisations or farmers in a similar capacity.
Amazing, welcome. And I like to see that it's spreading in teams, the Bridging Fields journey. Harriet.
Hi, I'm Harriet Wishart. I'm course director and senior lecturer at Anglia Ruskin University, teaching in livestock. And I've done a bit of work with farmers before, but I want to do more projects and help my PhD student to do that too. And this is my first time along, so thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Bethan.
Hi, afternoon everyone. I'm Bethan John. I'm an animal health specialist at the UK Agri-Tech Centre. Attended Bridging Fields bits and pieces before, mainly here today so that I can take any learnings back to colleagues who are not in the farming sector. So I've got colleagues who work in robotics and AI. So yeah, sharing learnings with them on how they can work with farmers on their projects.
Fantastic, thanks for joining. Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a farm business manager, partner, and also I'm doing a PhD in family farm business resilience. I'm at Harper Adams. And I'm really interested in the action research perspective, but also kind of being very involved in a farm business and also being like the beginning of a researcher. I'm really interested in how the two kind of bridge, really.
Great timing for your career. Thank you. Peter.
Sorry, yes, here I am. Peter Hoebe, I work for Earthwatch, which is an organization looking at the environment using citizen science. So I'm working sort of on agriculture. So we already work quite a bit with farmers in projects where we sort of collect data together and look at specific issues, mostly at soils at the moment. And what I've learned so far is that there are lots of people interested in working with farmers as well. So I'm very keen to hear what other people are doing and hopefully do some work together, collaborating.
Yeah, totally. Networking opportunities for sure. Olise?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, good.
I am a lecturer in environmental science from Teesside University in the Northeast. My research area is in sustainable food systems and pro-environmental behavior. I try to understand how to make food more sustainable. Most of my research before now have been focusing more on the global south. That's Asia and Africa. So I want to learn more on how to co-design research here within the context of global north, that's the UK as a case study. Thank you.
Amazing. Welcome. Thank you. Caris? Oh, might be multitasking. We'll come back to Caris. Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Beth. I have recently finished my PhD. I'm a vet by training, and I now work for Aberwine DGC, which is an antimicrobial stewardship project in Wales. And one of the things we do is work with farmers to put innovations into practice and see how that can affect their antimicrobial use. So yeah, just really interested to learn a bit more about maybe how we can design that in a better way and work with that design. And I think, farmer participation is something that potentially my PhD didn't have enough of. And looking back, it's really interesting to look at kind of how things could have been done differently.
Nice. Well, yeah, welcome the reflection. Thank you. Fiona, if you could join us, actually.
Hi, Lisa. And hello, everyone. I'm from the Rothschild Foundation. I'm interested just to hear who you all are, so the range of disciplines that are interested in learning about researching with farmers, but also over time covering your journeys and seeing what the training leads to in terms of the new research.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining. Next on the list, Helen.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen. I'm a lecturer in environment and sustainability at the University of Salford. I finished my PhD in 2023. I'm interested in biodiversity, so I'm an eco-acoustician. So I use acoustics to record the environment and to understand the biodiversity that's present, whether that be birds, mammals, and more recently going underneath the ground and looking at soil acoustics as well and what invertebrates that we might be able to detect there. I attended the residential in August. It was great, had a really good time, met lots of people, still in contact with them, and a development of a bid is underway, which is great. So really happy to be here and lovely to meet you all.
Excellent. Thanks, Helen. BD?
Hi, Bede.
Bede, sorry.
I'm a plant ecologist at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. I'm really interested in sort of all forms of sustainable land management, and obviously farming's a big part of that. I attended, I think, the first few of these in the spring/early summer, and that was really interesting to kind of see context across the fields. And then I also sort of felt like I got to apply a little bit of what we spoke about with field work of doing a summer of field work on some farms. It was very interesting to see the sort of different priorities. And yeah, it's nice to be rejoining today. Thanks.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Bede. Good to see you getting out and farm. Nice. Yeah. Isabella, or Izzy. I'll put you Isabella.
Is that me?
Yeah. It's weird seeing your name written.
Hi, everyone. I'm Izzy. I've worked with farmers before as a vet, but also in the NGO sector as well. But I'm actually just 3 or 4 weeks into starting a PhD looking at the on-farm risk of zoonotic disease transmission through rodents. And I'm hoping to work with farmers to develop methodologies on how I look at this for a social science lens. I'm based in a school of geography at Cardiff, between geography and bioscience. So pretty interdisciplinary, and I'm here to learn how I can apply this to my project. So looking forward to learning lots.
Thanks for joining. Last few, Shannon.
Hello, I am sitting right next to Izzy. I am a new PhD student as well at Cardiff University, based in the School of Biosciences, doing One Health research looking at human behavior and risk factors for zoonotic disease spillover. My project at the moment is very broad, but may end up involving research with farmers. So hoping to learn best practices for that, as well as kind of best practices for participatory action research in general. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shannon. Jessica?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Yeah, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jess Chapman, so I'm an interdisciplinary PhD student at the University of East Anglia and the Tyndall Centre for Climate Change Research. My research combines soil science, social science, and agri-environment policy, and I focus on specifically regenerative agriculture decision-making, and I work with farming communities here in Norfolk, specifically clusters, farming clusters, and also farming communities in Spain. And I'm really excited about this program. I think it's a brilliant kind of structured resource that I wish I had come across earlier in my research, because I'm finished on my fieldwork now. So it's a bit of a lessons learned for me. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. And never give up. There'll be more projects for sure. Isla, you're next.
Hello, I'm a PhD student at Lancaster University, and I research how air pollution affects leafy crops. And then part-time I also work supporting the Farming and Protected Landscape program at Ironside Silverdale, so it's sort of combined. So I'm really interested on how farming can feed into research, and likewise the other way. So looking forward to it. This is my first session, so really keen to see what happens.
Welcome. Sophie.
Hello.
Yep, can hear you.
Hello. Oh gosh, my hair. Hi everyone. So I'm Sophie. I have just started a PhD at Southampton, looking at the uptake of technology by people who grow food, so specifically AI to recognize birds from their songs and that use in biodiversity monitoring. But I'm also finishing up as a research project manager on land use for net zero and the Agri-Food Network. So thank you. That's me. Lovely to meet you all.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. Thino or Thiano? Please correct me if I pronounce that wrong.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Thiano Musuri. I'm Professor of Museum Studies at UCL. This is my first meeting with this group, and it's really hard to know how to introduce myself and my research. So I am a multidisciplinary social science researcher, basically doing work around how people make sense of their social kind of reality that they live in, the social world, and where they kind of fit in. I do work with, both individuals, but also different communities. And I have a special interest in food heritage in particular, and the role that it plays in the way we make decisions about food and the future of food. I have worked on a number of food-related projects, and I use a range of methodologies depending on the research questions, including participatory action research. So I would like to translate. I've never worked with farmers, so I would like to see how that translates into that world, as it were.
Brilliant, thank you. Super interesting. Just the diversity of subjects here is great. And last but not least, Robert, do you want to introduce yourself? Save the vector last. Hang on, shall I unmute you? I think the mute's not. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now? Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey up.
Oh. Yep.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm Robert Mallet. I'm a dairy farmer, not far from Lisa at Highworth. I was involved in Lisa's antimicrobial reduction program. Don't know how long ago it was, 8 years ago or something now. What Lisa achieved with me and the other group of farmers, I think, was a bit of a mindset change from using antibiotics as a first resort to thinking them as a last resort and not using them as unless absolutely necessary. That came along with the vets, were sort of rather, again, got a lot of vets on this call, I know, but it involved a mindset of the change from the vets as well, which is, I think we've achieved quite a lot of that now, but at the beginning, vets were of the same attitude that antibiotics, any sick animal really needed antibiotics, and in my view, they don't. I've also got quite an interest in technology, so that's one way that we've reduced antibiotic use, is to use cow monitoring systems to monitor health and recovery from treatments with or without antibiotics.
Fantastic. And we'll dive into some of the discussion a bit more about how your role in this research projects and these sort of approaches. I'm sure you'll get lots of questions. But now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I should have done that earlier, shouldn't I? And hand over to Emmanuel, who's co-leading this project, who's going to share some experiences from his well, as a practitioner of PAR, basically, participatory action research. And then we'll have a bit of time for questions, and then I'll share some experiences, and we'll have a bit more time for questions. Okay, so sit back and enjoy.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Great. So I am just going to share with you some of the experiences that I have with co-creation and co-designing, with a focus on how we can use indigenous knowledge for climate change adaptation and suitability assessments. I heard one of the participants as well is doing similar work, so hopefully this will be of help to you and also the rest. To give you a little bit of a context, I conducted my study in Malawi. So it's a small nation in sub-Saharan Africa. And as majority of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, climate change threatens the livelihoods. And this is mainly because of the high poverty levels and also the low adaptation capacity. And as a result of all these climatic impacts, the government of Malawi has identified various high-value nut trees, nut crops, as a way of cushioning to the impacts, mainly because the country focuses its production on maize for food security and tobacco for income generation. But we all know that now the market for tobacco is going down, and as a result, the need for the local communities to start to look at different crops for food security and also for income generation. And the reason why macadamia Well, the thing is, it can't be used as a source of food. It's highly nutritious and also has a high content of monosaturated fats, and can be used as an ingredient for many of other products. And then you can also use it for production of oils, water filters, and then the nuts coats can be used for firewood generation. So on here, I'm just showing you some of the sites which I visited and also the local communities that I was able to meet for this particular study. But the key thing why I wanted to go to Malawi wasn't about, mainly, I wasn't thinking about co-creation, but co-creation came as a second part of my study. Initially, I wanted to just go in as a pure environmental scientist and then put out sensors and then collect data on climate and then use that data and also historical data to see how climate change is impacting crop production, especially with macadamia trees. However, when I was in Malawi, I discovered that through talking with the farmers, there was a key issue which kept on coming, that they were highlighting that we have seen so many researchers come to Malawi and they have their own research ideas, but what about our voice? Our voice also matters. And we do hear that people present their papers from whatever studies they conduct. So this basically gave me a mindset change, I can say, because now I was like, okay, so it's like we're just coming in as researchers, getting the information from the farmers, and then that's it. So after that, I decided to change the way I was approaching my study. And basically, I started to, first of all, to talk with the communities, asking them about the sort of challenges they are facing in macadamia production. And because majority of the areas where macadamia is grown in Malawi are the most remote parts of Malawi, and most of the development work doesn't happen there because, one, there is no roads, and if there are roads, basically the transport system doesn't work. So not many people like to go to those areas and conduct their studies, and if they do, they're possibly in these big cars, which is the norm. Like when the communities in those areas see these big cars, they basically respond to your responses, thinking that they'll get maybe, for example, a project that will help them. But I decided to go on a different approach. So rather than going with a big car, I decided to basically use a motorbike with the local communities as my guide, and then starting to talk with them informally to see what was really happening in that particular community. And what I realized was there have been various studies that were looking at climate suitability for macadamia in Malawi, but what was missing was the people's voice. Because with climate modeling, it's mainly simulations. You're using a computer, using your own scientific knowledge, and then providing the results to the local communities. And then I realized that what if we would look at it to say the communities provide insights on what they think influences macadamia suitability in Malawi, and then use those insights to integrate with the scientific knowledge that I had. And basically, that's what I decided to do. So I conducted the study in these areas on here, central Malawi and southern Malawi, because these are the biggest parts of the country that produce macadamia. But because central Malawi is patrilineal in terms of cultural norms, it means women are not allowed to sit with men. Let's say, for example, if you're conducting research, so they have to be separated because of the cultural differences or also the cultural influence in those parts. And then southern Malawi is different. It's matrilineal, so it's females who have majority of the voice. And what that meant was I needed to come up with a way on how I could be able to speak with the farmers, both male and female, and then be able to get their views. So what I decided to do was to have 3 separate focus group discussions where there was only males and females separately in both of the sites. And then I asked them to say, is it possible that I can be able to have all of you together, which was a welcome idea, which initially I thought it wouldn't work. But because I had created this safe space, the communities were able to say we can sit together and we can share basically our thoughts rather than separating the groups. And through that, I was also able to speak with some of the youth farmers as well, because macadamia is considered as basically a retirement crop, but the youth are starting to also grow macadamia. So I decided to also invite the youth within the local communities to come for those sessions. And basically through the sessions, we developed together what we refer to as the Indigenous Knowledge Scoping Framework, where as a group, we identified the various knowledge categories that are within those different communities and different parts of Malawi. And then I was getting the ideas, also their experiences on what they thought are the factors that influence macadamia suitability. And we basically found out that there were some who were focusing on ecological indicators, then celestial indicators and meteorological indicators. And from there, we looked at the various bird species, with men providing their own experiences on the sort of bird species, and also women, because they are all involved in different things within the communities, and they also observe these things separately. And then from there, we basically use this knowledge to have a climate suitability model that was looking at only the indigenous knowledge, and then another climate suitability model that was based on the scientific aspect, and then looked at which one was providing better results. And what we found out was that there wasn't much of a difference in terms of what the local communities were saying as indicators of suitability compared to what we were looking at in terms of the scientific aspect. So we decided to basically merge both the indigenous knowledge together with the scientific knowledge that we have into one model to see how the suitability of macadamia looks like if we combined those. And some interesting things that we found was that the local communities were providing responses based on how they were perceiving things in the environment. And we were translating this into the science that we know. So basically that provided a way of us proofing like what is written in, let's say, what is written in literature. Is it what really the local communities are looking at? And these are some of the quotes that we basically got. And then from this, we basically came up with the indicators of weather predictions based on what the local communities were saying. As an example sign, let's say the elderly community members feeling discomfort and body pains. And if this occurs between October to January, it means there's going to be heavy rains expected in that year. And then we were relating this to how this means with world climate data to say, is this precipitation seasonality, or is this precipitation of the coldest month? And then using that to inform our climate suitability modeling. And basically what we found out was that there was basically that particular link between what the farmers were saying with our results. And from there, then we came up with these results that with macadamia suitability modeling, based on what the local communities were telling us and based on scientific knowledge and our models, these are the climatic factors that influence production. And then when we had our closing meeting after all the analysis, that was me coming back to the UK, analyzing the data, and then after getting the results and going back to the local communities to basically tell them that based on what we were looking at, this is what I found out. the local communities were really happy because I would say like they weren't expecting me to come back and to ask them to say, is this really what you are seeing, and is this really what you were saying? And then through that end of project, we basically came up to say this is actually what is on the ground, and we did submit the paper, and I'm happy to say with you here now that the paper has been accepted for publication. It's coming out in January because it's in a special issue. And then we came up with this map which shows the suitability of macadamia in Malawi, but also the suitability of how stink bugs look like, because stink bugs relate to the climate suitability. So having said that, some of the lessons that I basically learned through this process is, first of all, having a shared vision. Because when I was going into the field, I was going in to say I would like to conduct my own studies. But basically, when I started talking with the people, I realized that I needed to have basically to go down and say, okay, this is what I want to look at, but what is it that the local communities are interested in? So developing goals together, that's one thing that I learned, and also that led to a success of this particular research piece. Again, transparency. When I went there, I told them that I wanted to look at the environmental side of things. But then through their interactions, I told them right away to say, okay, now I'm rethinking what I need to do. And for me to do this, we need to basically understand, first of all, what's the indigenous knowledge and how it relates to my study. So having that open communication about decisions and also some of the challenges that we could face if we basically change that particular research. Happy to say that my supervisors were very supportive. Of course, there was some saying that maybe you won't have enough time, but it was possible to do that. Again, the other thing which I noted, and also a lesson and top tip when you are working with local communities, is about the care and awareness, especially if you are looking at cultural sensitivity, awareness of the power dynamics, and being a facilitator rather than being dominant to say, oh, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it this particular way. So being aware of what is happening. And then also looking at decision making. So communities make real decisions, and they also know basically what the outcomes will look like. So not just consulting, but also making sure you understand why they're doing certain specific decisions, and then valuing local knowledge as well. So basically that's what I have to say, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. And just the practical things that you did about accessing communities, making yourself more available and putting yourself in the community's shoes was great. Oh, we've had a question. Publication details, please, Emmanuel. Share your link in the chat. We've got time for one quick question. If you've got to ask Emmanuel one, and we've got time for discussion after the break as well. Is anyone going to be brave? We'll develop some of the stuff you talked about, Emmanuel, in a second as well. So if you want a bit more, so go on, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. That was very, very interesting. My question is around, I guess, your footing into the communities. So did you have key contacts, or how did that come about for you? What was the process? Thank you.
Hi. So for me to be able to the local communities, so these are parts of Malawi where, as I've already said, these are the most ruralest part of the country. So I had never gone to those parts. But I did some research about these communities, and I was able to find some NGOs like the Highlands Macadamia Cooperative Union, which I can term as a gatekeeper. So I contacted them to say, this is what I would like to do. And they were the ones who basically told me that, okay, we work with these farmers, and if you'd like to come, you can come. So that was one. But I also worked with the government agricultural systems, and they were also the ones who said you can visit these places. We know that there is macadamia production happening there, but we're not too sure. So I had basically two gatekeepers: the government of Malawi and also the local NGO within the area. Thank you.
Thanks, Manuel. And yeah, and if you haven't seen one of the sessions in the summer where we talk quite a lot about gatekeepers, definitely worth looking at, because they're absolutely key to engage with communities that you might not know about or know very well. Right, I'm going to introduce some slides now from some of the participatory action research that I've done. Some top tips, lessons learned, things, tried this, don't do this again, sort of idea. But just to give you a bit of definitions, because it's really interesting working with Emmanuel, because Emmanuel talks about it a lot more in co-creation and co-production, and there's some wonderful examples of how you did that. And there's a lot of overlap in terms, because a lot of those co-production techniques overlap with participatory action research, this idea of participation, people having a say in things that affect them. In the academic literature, both are talked about. It depends on the sort of subject area, which is not very helpful when you're new to these areas. And co-design is another term that gets bandied around a lot. But yeah, I've got some definitions here pulled from Cornish et al., who I particularly like their work on this area. But it's an approach to research that prioritises the value of experiential knowledge for tackling problems caused by unequal and harmful social systems. The fact that there's more than one type of knowledge out there, diversity of knowledge, is kind of embedded in this approach. It's a way of conducting research with people rather than for them or about them, which I think you got a nice taste of from Emmanuel's work and from the stuff we've done in this programme. And understanding the world by making it better as well. That's from Chevalier and Buckle's book on PAR, Participatory Action Research. So key principles around this are around kind of like knowledge mobilisation, lots of different diverse knowledge, but working with people rather than it being extractive, and trying to have an action, like an actual, tangible output, rather than it just being like, oh, that's nice, we've done some research, we found out some stuff, gone in a paper. No, what actually has it changed? What is the social issue that it's addressing? And it might not always be a huge change, but it's that being inherent in the approach. Aims to make decision making more equitable and inclusive, empower people through that participation process, starts getting really into the power dynamics, which was something, as a vet, I had no idea there was people called like Freire and Foucault, I can't even say their names properly, but these people have written like tomes on power in society and power in education. And actually our whole relation with communities in these kind of approaches is all of the power dynamic that we should critically appraise and be aware of. Like we've mentioned, mobilising diverse knowledge, and this key bit that I think participatory action research differs from some of the co-production techniques, is it's ultimately trying to address and improve some social issue. So the work I did with Robert was all about trying to tackle antimicrobial resistance and antimicrobial use in dairy sector, and trying to actually have a tangible outcome on that, which can be argued whether we did or not. So there's loads of examples using all these different terminologies across food and farming. Could trace back quite a lot of its history to the 80s with farmer field schools. Stable schools have been widely used in Denmark when I started my PhD, and that's what I based farmer action groups on. You hear about it talked in the terms of community-based research, citizen science, multi-actor approach. The European Horizon Europe stuff, love calling it a multi-actor approach, which is using like knowledge brokers to mobilise different knowledge, bring people together. I mean, it's very muddied world out there. But if you're new, particularly you starting off in your new project design, it's going to really help knowing those terms when looking at the literature and thinking about the kind of nuanced differences between them all. But what we did in my PhD, with the wonderful help of Robert and co, was regular on-farm meetings to discuss how to reduce the need for antimicrobials, basically. And we've got here the lady in the middle, Sarah Bolt, was an absolute critical facilitator and gatekeeper in this project. She was really pivotal in helping me reach a wider farming community. Although I was working down in Cornwall as a farm vet, I wanted to work with a wider range of farmers across the southwest. So that's basically what we did. It was a farmer-led farm walk, some facilitated discussion to identify positive areas that the farmer was doing well, and where can we focus some efforts, some opportunities for change. We use lots of these participatory tools. These are quite a classic feature of these approaches. So this helps with the mobilising knowledge different types of knowledge. I wasn't there as the expert. You know, I learned so much about growing grass from these guys. I just didn't know. But they wanted to know about HPCIAs, so I was there with that. Highest priority, critically important antibiotics. And these tools can help like leverage those different types of knowledges. Exact way to get creative, basically. So Robert, you'll probably remember some of those. We even had people on the floor drawing maps of their farms, seeing the dog was helping there. Trying to not just be words and PowerPoints and the things that we're used to in academia, like papers and PowerPoints, trying to get a bit more diverse in the forms of knowledge and information. Also did quite a lot of benchmarking, and this was seen as quite valuable, I think. And I tweaked and changed the way this was presented and how we was measuring it, because there was a huge diversity of ways of collecting and measuring this data, particularly at the time. So that was an activity in itself that was co-developed with the farming groups. Produced things like this, where you had all the different farms along the bottom and antibiotic use from one year to the next, hugely diverse, but just shows these approaches, because they can often get quite a lot of criticism from some spheres of research, a bit about being really like woolly and things like that. But no, they completely do lend themselves to quantitative data collection methods. And a key factor wasn't just parachuting in, taking this data and then never to be seen again. We used it as a group to help drive change and followed it up. So we created these action plans together, and I went back to them, because that's the thing. Particularly, we all hear about impact measurements in academia, how you measure impact. Well, unless you go back to some of these changes that have been initiated, you're never going to know, are you? So follow up. And it could be criticised. This project didn't go on long enough, or haven't had a chance to follow up. But Robert can maybe tell us more. But ultimately, it was all about on-farm change. This has got to be valuable to the farmers I was working with. There's no point just having a bit of a talking shop. How did they use it? What changes did they make? And critically, it wasn't really me coming up. I wasn't coming up with these changes. They were. So Robert, you might recognise that picture. So there was a lot of like peering over each other's fences, opening the farm up to each other, sharing experience, and there's a real like sense of solidarity actually from these groups. They're all going through this sort of process of change, tackling these kind of targets about reducing antibiotic use that were coming through the supply chain together as a group. So I tried to distill some key points about farmer action, so they're called farmer action groups, just to help distill it into a nice useful form. So although the project came from it was funded by HDB and the Langford Trust, it was run by me as the PhD student at Bristol Uni, so you could argue that wasn't very farmer led. But by the end of it, the action plans, the changes on farm, that was all in the control of the farmers. We had a lot of open dialogue, a lot of questions, rather than just me turning up being like, oh, you should be using this antibiotic. Where my knowledge was wanted or asked for, it could be provided. But I was really relying on this peer-to-peer element, which is such a powerful tool for getting knowledge shared and change on ground. Didn't do this in research institutes. Did this out on farms. This is a bit like what Manuel was talking about. We've mentioned in previous places. As researchers, we are comfortable in our little offices on our laptops, but we've got to get out. Like, if you want to engage with communities, we've got to get out of these environments, get our boots dirty. And I'm sure many of you in the audience, it'll be second nature to you, but just thought worth saying. And this action value orientated, like we'll talk about this in future events as well, but like what's in it for the people you want to engage? Like, what's in it for a farmer? Like, think about your research question, your approach. What's the farmer going to get out of it? Why would they be involved? And then some practical structural things there up in the top right hand corner, the regular cyclical nature of these engagements, the follow-up, keeping the relationships going. It's not just parachuting in and parachuting out. Me and Robert have stayed good friends after this. So if there's anything coming up that's of interest to him, I can share it and see how he's getting on with the tumultuous world of farming. And you can take these learnings that I've got from PhD and I've followed these approaches in other projects, like European projects with the chicken sector, international antimicrobial stewardship things, and RY and DGC is represented here, and I know they follow some of these principles. I'll skip a slide, but they mirror lots of different community engagement work. This one is taken from racialised communities equitable access to healthcare, and it's a similar kind of idea. Using gatekeepers, keeping those relationships going, developing. I'll start by asking, going there as an open book, developing those questions and those approaches with the community, the farming community, but being conscious of the sort of people you engage with as well. So I can share all these things with you afterwards. But key lessons learned, and then I'll hand over to Robert for some of his views on this before opening to questions. There is a few limitations, as we might say in research, or like considerations. These approaches aren't suitable for everyone all of the time. Okay, it was a massive time commitment to participate. It is a lot of time on the road as a researcher, so that has to be, balanced up. It relies on the farmers in this sort of approach to be happy to share. If you're using a peer-to-peer learning and sharing data, and some topics at some points in people's lives they don't want to share, and that's absolutely fine. This risk of spreading poor practice is an interesting one. This was something the vets actually were quite concerned about when we started this project, and I was engaging quite a lot with local vets to try and set up these groups. That didn't really work very well, but we can discuss that later. It was dependent on the facilitator and Sarah from HDB and myself at the start, but by the end of it, we were like obsolete, really. We're just there for the jolly. And long-term change is hard to measure in the short term. Yeah, definitely. Have these changes stuck? I think Robert can give us a bit more of an intel there. But critically, wasn't coming in there as the expert. Yes, I knew about highest priority critically important antibiotics, but how that was to be realised on farm was not my area of expertise. We saw changes in practice. There was over 300 different things people were committing to. And I think I have to remember the stats now. Within a year, nearly 60% of the things on the action list had been attempted or are ongoing. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that's the end of my slide. Oh yeah, that's the phrase I always kind of learned on this project. No one knows the farm better than the farmer. So if you come in as a researcher trying to change it, that's where to start with. Robert, did you want to come in with any experiences and thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know what I want to say. I think it's peer-to-peer learning is really important, isn't it? If you talk about sort of calf welfare, we spent a lot of time talking about antibiotic use on calves, and if they have a snotty nose, you use one antibiotic, and if they have a cough, you use another antibiotic and whatnot. But I built a specific calf shed, and the answer is to have good calf housing so they don't bloody get pneumonia in the first place. It's just that sort of seeing something that works then motivates other people to progress in that direction.
Yeah, totally. There was a lot of like egging each other on or giving each other ideas. That was great to see. I think like calves was a popular one in your group, and I think in the group in Devon. Yeah. How did you find, once you finished this project, how did you feel about antibiotics?
Yeah, it definitely changed my mindset. I think you pick up from the vets that it seems to me different vets of different generations have different ideas of what's the best antibiotic. But the vets were out to sell expensive bottles of critical antibiotics, and having the confidence to stop using them and going back to good old pen and strep and whatnot is pretty much as effective, an awful lot cheaper, and not critical for human health. It's just having that confidence to move away from what the vets are advising you. I don't know, I should be saying that, but you assume the vets know what they're talking about, and in fact you can you don't have to always follow their advice.
Yeah, and I think the vets had gone on the learning journey at the same time as this was sort of 2016, 2017 time. About what antibiotics we should be using, and there's a risky practice for changing treatment protocols. So I think one of the most popular topics on the action plan was like book to see my vet, talk about this, which was pretty good. Oh, I think we got some questions in the chat. Okay, hang on, quite some big questions. Well, I'll try my best to answer these. Who's the generation? How do you approach the ethical review? Oh, ethics. Oh, yeah. Yes. So ethics will involve any approaches using people is a different kettle of fish to say, you know, soil samples in the laboratory, for instance. So there was probably quite a hefty process of getting you guys, Robert, and signing consent forms, informed consent to share data, knowing where it's going. And I was always there on the farm like a dictaphone, you know, and that kind of comes up with the relationships thing, being like trusting of what's happening with this data, always sharing it back, being able to pull out as well, pull out of the project. So that's, yeah. So, oh my God.
And Lisa as well, if ethics is always one of those which is tricky, because if you're looking at code development, you're not really sure what you're going to do in the inception. So it's always important to inform the ethics committee that I am going to implement code development or code generation of knowledge. And what that means is I will be flexible in some of the things. And then once you get the approval, if you go out and to test out your let's say, for example, your focus group discussions, your survey, and then once you have co-developed it with the participants, you can always email back or tell ethics committee that this is the minor changes from what I initially was thinking about. Now it has been changed to this particular way, so that they are aware of what you are doing.
Yeah, the two-way is communication, the transparency, and yeah, they can be really like unplanned projects. But I think if you can put, I had published material from the Stable School approach to use. You could use, this has been published as well, so you can use published material as a bit of a backup. There's a really good comment here from Hannah about these approaches rely on being a great facilitator, and that's something I kind of forgot to mention actually, because you're an insider and an outsider kind of at the same time, and you're there to like, I mean, develop the relationships and was going through this process with the farmers, but also, you know, still outside of the farm, still doing the research thing. So being a facilitator is a really good skill, and I think we'll probably try and provide more facilitation training as part of this program. But we also worked with, again, this is Gatekeepers Can Help. My first bit of training being a facilitator was from Sarah Bolt of HDB Dairy. Like, just pair up with people you think are good facilitators, learn on the job. 2 questions for you, Robert, and then we'll probably have to have a quick comfort break. So, one, and this is from Rachel Mallet. I don't believe you're related, but
no, I saw that name the other day.
Had you been involved in research projects before? Oh yeah, so that's the first one.
Research projects? Yes, I have. I mean, years ago we did research with Bridget on the effectiveness of hormones, you know, holding jabs, they called it, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I've always been interested in seeing what works and what doesn't without sticking my neck out too.
Right. So if no, and if yes, what was it at the beginning to persuade you to give up your time?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was quite a commitment. At the time, this use of critical antibiotics in farming was a big issue, wasn't it? It was going to kill us all because we weren't using them. We were destroying the effectiveness of these human use antibiotics. So it was quite a powerful motivation at the time, and it seems to me that we've achieved that. It's just disappeared into the ether, isn't it? Nobody seems to be worrying about it too much now. We've done something about it in the dairy industry, pig industry, farming as a whole, and it's disappeared and been taken over by other issues.
Yeah, it's been kicked out of the limelight by carbon, I think, rather than it's going away, the problem. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, Rachel. I think what we'll do, we'll have a quick comfort break now. So 5 minutes, stretch your legs, toilet, whatever you need to do. And then we'll come back at 10 past. A bit more chance to ask any questions once you've reflected on what you've heard, and then we'll go into breakout groups. Okay, so just keep on the call, just turn your mics and videos off.
Lisa?
Hang on.
Hello.
Yep, go for it.
It's me, Sophie. Hi.
Yeah, hello.
I was just thinking on facilitation. I'm working on a facilitation workshop at the moment for another project. I can hand you over my contact details for the guy.
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah, because we can stack things that are already happening.
Yeah, so his name is Russell Thomas. I'll find his details and I'll email them over to you.
Yeah, fab. Yeah.
And so he specializes in facilitation with an EDI lens.
Okay, that's good.
So, and he's something to do as well with like the National Trust. So not specifically farming related, but like nature environment related.
That could be a good collabs.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Sophie.
No worries. All right. See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Yes, Madam Sabino. Yeah, ndibuba ngaro ababarungu.
Okey-doke. Another bit. Oh no, that's a bit. Okay. Don't need the screen. I'm meant to be doing breakout groups. Oops. Oh yeah, go on, Tiana. You got a quick question before everyone comes back.
Yeah, I have two quick questions. So the first one is, so I haven't worked with farmers before, but I have worked with botanic garden professionals, and they tend to have a kind of STEM, kind of natural sciences background, and they do value research a lot, but they're more used to numbers and statistics. Yeah. So I was wondering if there was a kind of pushback around more qualitative work, research, and participatory action research is a kind of different kettle of fish in its own right. And also, you were talking about the peer-to-peer learning, which kind of the more you work with them, the more they learn, and the kind of their learning fits into the research. So I was wondering how your methodology accounted for that, and then when you presented the findings, how you dealt with that.
Yeah, tricky question. So with the types of data and information shared and collected in this project, it was a mixed method. So I tried to do a bit of everything, because I know, like Robert, he really loves numbers and is really good at data analysis on farm. So the benchmarking and the medicine use statistics like appealed to someone like Robert and lots of others. But initially the units were like really alien and took a long time to get your head around. So we started with something that everyone understood, which was finance. Like, how much money are you spending on this medicine versus that medicine versus, so start with something everyone can relate with. The qualitative data, I would basically, when I was doing all the transcriptions and coding, after every meeting I did like summary reports. That was essentially me translating. It was a very much a translational exercise into what people had talked about, what was relevant to them. So it's always trying to make it relatable rather than, I could have shared the transcripts. No one ever reads transcripts other than the research. It's so hard to get through. But it's always there as an option. And some people really liked those reports. Some people liked the action plans, having it written. Others were just like, I just know it's been discussed. So it was really variable, but that's the beauty of mixed methods, is you have ways of using information in lots of different ways. In terms of the presenting it academically, I had some very good supervisors. So basically, depending on the audience, who was going to be more receptive to what types of results. So when I was talking to maybe more of the human geographers, the social scientists, people who already be doing participatory action research, then the qualitative findings about the mobilisation of knowledge, the sense of solidarity, those things were much more interesting to them. But when I talked to more vetty industry, like the HDB, my funders conferences, they want to know about medicine use. So I was a bit, I don't want to say cherry picking, but know your audience is the top thing for comms. Right. So hopefully everyone's coming back now. We've got any further comments or questions, or I'm going to hand over to maybe Kat to share some of her experiences doing these sort of participatory approaches. Know your examiners, yeah. Great advice. Those doing PhDs, yes, choose widely.
Did not talk enough about welfare with 2 welfare examiners. Now regretting it while I'm doing my corrections.
Oh no, yes, classic. Avoid it, yeah. Oh, it's almost not enough time in the Viva. But yeah, try as PhD students. Try and have some involvement in your examination choice. I know some supervisors are a bit hands off, but you want someone who can understand, or at least understands the approach. Yeah. At least one examiner understands the approach, and it's getting more and more in mainstream for sure. It's weird. Yeah. Pat, where have you gone? Do you want to share some insights into a recent project using some of these approaches?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, hello again, everyone. So I've been asked to share some experiences from our recent research project. So, which was co-designing breeding strategies, so beef and sheep breeding strategies that have the capacity to achieve net zero, but are also economic and welfare friendly. And we had a very large consortium of industry, and we're working with a lot of farmers as well to co-design these approaches. And that took primarily relevant for this session the form of workshops with farmers and industry, and also there was an element of data collection from farmers as well. So I'm going to talk about those 2 things primarily. So just a bit of background. I mean, I'm really sort of I really started out in the sort of like biological sciences. My PhD was in veterinary epidemiology, and I very much thrive in the lab counting bacteria. So for me, this was my first social science study. I mean, I've always wanted to do a little bit more in that area, and hence also my first sort of like experience in co-design and participatory research strategies. So it was really interesting. And I must say that Lisa obviously was also a co-I on this project, so she's helped me along a lot, and I've learned a lot from her. But yes, so we worked with a range of beef and sheep farmers, and I must say we worked with some very, very enthusiastic farmers, which is great, and we had some really, really great workshops, and there was some real great knowledge exchange and co-design happening. We did pay, I know somebody in the chat mentioned incentives. We did actually pay in incentives to farmers to share some data with us as well, but we didn't pay them very much. I don't think that was probably the make and break in participating in our research. Most farmers participated, I reckon, because they were genuinely interested in the topic. But we also find that enthusiasm is not always enough. So time is a major issue with farmers, of course. So we did have a fair few dropouts, specifically during the time when we were asking farmers to share some of their data with us. So, I mean, one tip I have would be to probably, when you recruit, to have some sort of like spare farmers in mind, or recruit more than you need, perhaps. Well, the other thing we probably learned is that there is absolutely never a good time in the farming calendar to run any sort of event. There's always something happening. So it is actually quite a challenge to bring everyone together. And the in-person events we organized, they really went surprisingly well, considering. But we had a fair few farmers highlighting that they probably might have preferred an online event if possible. So yeah, that is a challenge to find just farmers finding the time to commit and especially to travel as well. In terms of the data collection, I mean, there we definitely went through a learning curve there. We thought we had it all thought through, but I don't think we did think it through there as well. It turned out that the data collection was quite taxing for farmers. There was quite a complex sheet, an Excel sheet to fill out, and I think we should have probably thought about this a little bit better in the beginning on how we would collect that data, and it turned out to be a really big task. So we haven't probably collected as many data sets as we wanted it. So I suppose another bit of advice would be to really make it as easy and accessible as possible.
Yeah, just to add to that, Kat, I think if we'd had more time, so these approaches, not only time commitment for people taking part, but time to do them. If we had more time, we could have spent more of an opportunity to go to farms, meet farmers at their setting, and collect the data, which is what we did for the Farmer Action Group projects. I went and visited farms, sat down, and we discussed medicine use. What we didn't realise, and anyone else working in this sphere, the amount of data that has to go into carbon footprinting. What's up? Which is a bit of a downside.
Yeah. Sorry, you want me to go on?
No, have you got him? Yeah, keep going. If you've got more.
Yeah. So,
any questions?
I have more. I have more. So that was sort of like more the farmer specific side, but we also worked with a range of industry as well, and it was really, really amazing having all the industry input. But personally, I guess I found it one of the challenges was to manage that many collaborators. There was quite a lot of project management going on, and we did have some engagement issues with very crucial partners, which then sort of like resulted in perhaps doing a little bit more work than expected, because everyone is always very busy. And to be honest, for such a short project, the monetary award, even though our partners were part of the project, part in the project budgets, they were not. It wasn't actually a lot of money. And I suppose one other thing to say is when you have that many collaborators, I mean, for me personally, there was a lot of thought process around phrasing things and wording things, like how to word emails, taking all the priorities into account and all the different characters, and making sure everyone is sort of like keep everyone happy and on the ball. And I'm going to admit, like, the admin was absolutely tedious sometimes. There were loads and loads of emails, to do, sorting out contracts. We had specific challenges with those with so many collaborators, and also sorting the claims process. So I wouldn't underestimate the amount of admin that goes into one of those projects. And I think that's sort of like everything I wanted to say, unless there's anything else, Lisa, that you think should have mentioned.
Brilliant. Well, this links into the questions in the chat about incentives. In a university setting, and with the funding that we kind of access, incentives come with more admin, is what I would say there. And I don't know what it's like at everyone else's institutions, but in Kat, Emmanuel and I, we are basically researchers, teachers, administrative officers, finance people, contract writers. We have to do all these things. So just bear that in mind, workload, and having support structures in place, because we don't want to say do these approaches and then everyone just gets overburdened. Any questions for Kat? Do feel like unmute yourselves or wave your hands around if you want to say anything. Oh God, Susan.
Yeah, Kat, thank you. That was really interesting. And I heard what you were saying about one of the major issues being farmers' time, which is and that there's never a good time to run a project. I mean, we worked quite closely with the farmers groups to try and ensure that we were minimising our impact on kind of key times, but we just basically had to be really flexible when we were interviewing. And sometimes that meant that I was interviewing whilst on the back of a quad bike. I actually ended up holding the farmer's baby for half an hour while she, got a newborn lamb out. And sometimes it has meant me having to go at sort of 8 o'clock at night, because that's the only time that it can be done. But I guess the kinds of things that we're doing are probably not seen as priority by farmers, but they're interested enough in it that they want to do it and that they will find the time. But for us, it was just really about being as flexible as we could be. So.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we didn't, for this project, we didn't do any interviews, so we didn't have so much, we didn't sort of like go on farm so much, but we had to, our challenge was to get everybody in the same room, sort of like at a certain time. So this was sort of the main challenge. And actually, our very last workshop, we chose to run it online and to run it in the evenings to really try and accommodate everyone in this, because it was such a challenge. Because we also worked across the 4 devolved nations. Probably should have mentioned this. So we had collaborators in every devolved nation, where initially they were meant to all run their own workshops. But in the end, the final workshop, it just seemed the best way to run it was just to do it all in one and online and in the evening to get as much participation as possible. But yes, I do hear you. Absolutely right. Yes, you got to be very, very flexible and very, as accommodating as you can, possibly can be.
And there's an excellent comment here from Caroline about camping out on farms. Yeah, I mean, particularly if you're doing these kind of in-depth approaches. Like Robert, you've had one of our colleagues installing cameras all over your farm as well, haven't you? Oh, don't forget you're muted. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's only one camera watching Youngstown, but yes, it is.
That was like around behaviour of cattle around electric fences.
Yeah.
Chocolate bars, yeah.
that's what I remember about what we were doing so long ago, to be honest. But yeah. Seriously, any farmer meeting, if you can get the other groups that I'm involved in, if you can provide them lunch or get them to come to lunch, it's much more of an incentive than be gone by 12 and go and milk, or come after milking and whatever. So it works with dairy farmers anyway.
Yeah, very good point. I think there is quite a neat time for dairy farming, isn't it? And then beef and sheep, I tend to find are a little bit more evening focused. Arable, yeah. Again, calendar difficult. This is like we spoke about in previous workshops: is knowing your audience and those kind of like stakeholder maps and actor maps. Where you're trying to work out who you need to work with or want to work with. It'll be hugely different. No one size fits all.
But I think sometimes you plan it out as much as you can. I mean, we had it also worked out. We were planning on running our workshop at certain times that we thought were good, but then from an admin point, the project got delayed. So that kind of like fell through the water. So we, in the end, we didn't have a choice but run it at less convenient times. So it's not always. Sometimes you have the best intentions, but things can get still challenging.
Yeah, totally. I think if anyone's going for new projects, particularly short ones, and wants to use these kind of approaches, have a very good discussion with your research support contracts team about what's needed, how long it takes, and get all that in place beforehand. Yeah, top tips. I'm going to take the facilitator's chair here. I'm going to move on to the breakout groups. Just have like 15 minutes time to put you in small groups, which is going to be completely random. Actually, how... Well, this slide won't stay with you in the breakout groups, will it? That's annoying. If you take a picture of this, everyone, it's on your screen now. I don't know how other way to do this. There's 5 kind of scenarios that I've just made up based on what I think is going on, like on the minds of farmers at the moment. So Robert and others can criticise me on this one, but just for the point of this activity, I want you to pick one. So like point 1 on the screen there will be room 1, point 2 will be room 2, point 3, room 3, etc. So when I open up these breakout rooms, you can choose. Oh no, actually, you might get manually assigned. Open rooms. How do I make you do? You're just going to be assigned to one. See what happens. I want you to try and put a participatory action research proposal together to tackle one of these 5 issues. Okay. So you'll have a picture of them. Maybe just choose one in your group that you want to focus on. So think about how you include the relevant people, how you get people equally participating, distribute the power around decision making and resources, have an action, a tangible outcome that tackles some of these issues. And then we'll come back together in about 15 minutes or so to share any volunteers. Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms and see how this goes, because last time we did this, it was a bit of a disaster. So you can just pick one in your group, and I'll try and share this text if you haven't already got a picture of it. And I'll stay in the main room and see it hoover anyone up who struggles. Okay, Robert, did you not get pinged into a room? No. Oh, that's funny. Okay, open. Which one's got lesson? Let me ping you into a. I think some people's accounts, Robert. Oh, it says you can't do it. This person can't access breakout rooms. Are you on some kind of like web version of Teams, maybe? This occasionally happens with some people. Their teams won't let them join breakout rooms. I don't
Hi.
know why. You're the same, Caroline.
I'm the same. I always have problems with Teams. I don't know why.
Yeah, because it. Well, you two can work together in this room. That's the easy solution. I'm just going to float around to make sure everyone knows what's going on. But you just pick one of those. You've got the beauty of having it on your shared screen, so you can pick one. Or Robert, maybe you just want to make a new one up. But think about what sort of project you could create following some of that participatory action research. Okay, so I will go and join rooms, make sure they're. Do that. Join.
Yeah, that's my big thing at the moment is carbon footprinting and welfare of animals and whatnot. So the thing that really sticks in my mind is that 18% of cattle that are tagged and registered on CMS die on the farm, and completely unproductive. And that's a real big win to improve carbon footprint and welfare and profitability. Everything, isn't it? Actually.
Sorry, did you say you said tagging?
18% of cattle that are registered on CMS, so born alive and soon to be viable, die on the farm and not, are therefore unproductive. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And what are they dying of?
I don't know. I guess mostly under a year old, so pneumonia and scares and bad management, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I'm just thinking of the so I'm working at the Centre for Rural Policy Research, and they've been heavily involved in the TB studies, and a lot of the researchers I know who've been involved in that have found that there's real issues with sort of farm place hygiene, with the kind the slurry pits and the sort of overstocking cow sheds and things like that. And so I think it feels like there hasn't been enough attention paid to the conditions on farm, in this whole conversation, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I mean, in terms of how to design a PAR project, I'm struggling a little bit with it. I feel like it's maybe something that it lends itself maybe to quite a specific problem. So like exactly that example you've just given, where you've got quite a clear kind of process of inquiry then, because you start with the problem, you say, right, well, this is the statistic, 18% are dying. So first of all, let's find out what they're dying of. Let's find out all the information we can about the farms involved in the study, see if we can see any common themes amongst them. And I can really see how that would unfold in a sort of a cyclical process of inquiry, sort of asking one question, getting the answers, reflecting on those answers, and then developing your next question. I guess, gosh, there's loads of different ways you could do that, aren't there? I mean, you could.
Yeah, but it works on a lot of levels, economic and animal welfare and carbon footprint and all sort of them.
Yeah, and I wonder whether
wastage, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think you would probably have to narrow it down quite a lot, wouldn't you? Because of that.
I would guess I found out some of the HCB groups and whatnot, there are an awful lot of farmers who don't engage, and probably those are the ones that are having problems, isn't it? So it's easy for those of us that take an interest to do better, but there are an awful lot that don't even engage with the HCB and the advice that's available from them and that sort of thing, and they're probably the ones that are having the losses, which is a more difficult thing to tackle, but nevertheless doesn't mean it shouldn't be tackled. It's just how you get there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in the study that you were involved with Lisa's project, how many? Oh, you're muted, Lisa.
Oh, so I keep trying to go between the rooms and I have to do this. Which one have I not been to? That's the next. That one. Okay.
It's like Gandalf or somebody popping in
it. Yeah. How many farmers were involved in that study?
I think she had multiple groups. There were, I think, probably 10 of us originally in my group, a few of which dropped out. So sort of 7 or 8 active members within a reasonable geographical area, within sort of less than an hour's travelling, which was quite important. None of us wanted to travel any more than that, for sure.
And so then you had focus groups then? Yeah. So Lisa was facilitating focus groups to try and sort of answer the initial, and was there sort of a series of questions each time that you worked your way through, or?
Yes, Lisa came up with an agenda, and there was a sort of a monthly meeting on each farm, and I think the farmers were asked to, what they wanted to discuss on their particular farm, and sort of get the peer learning from each other as what different ways of approaching different problems.
Okay. So you started with a sort of broad topic.
Antibiotic reduction, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a real mindset change. I've had that drummed into all my life that sick animal needs antibiotics, and actually they don't a lot of them. You know, they've got gutsache or toothache or headache or whatever. Antibiotics aren't going to do them any good at all, are they? But,
yeah, I know. Well, we've all. I feel like it's been the same for us humans. You know, we've had the same attitude to our own.
Yeah, it's like a virus, and we give it antibiotics.
Yeah, yeah.
But the strange thing was that a lot of it came from the vets. The vets seemed to. I mean, I can understand it to some extent because you know I'm here and I see my animals every day, and particularly with the electronic monitoring I've got, I can see what the response to any treatment is, whether they're getting better or worse. And I understand if a vet sees an animal once, you know, they want that animal to get better. So if they give it other treatments, antibiotics is a sort of fallback that will cover it with antibiotics anyway. But it would definitely contribute into unnecessary use, and particularly with the criticals that I don't think work any better than the good old-fashioned penicillins and things, actually.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I know it's a cynical generalization, but you can't help thinking it's very much about who's got something to sell, really.
Yeah.
And needing to sort of sell more products. But
yeah, and what I didn't realise, but I think I've learned over the years, is that vets get quite a lot of pressure from drug sales, which we assume that they're sort of independent advisors, but actually there's definite difference in the different generations of vets, which one they think is the best antibiotic, because that's what they've been almost brainwashed into at college.
Yeah, yeah.
So how far you got?
Lisa.
Hi. We haven't got very far. I've just been mostly grilling Robert and asking him lots of questions because I'm so fresh to this. I don't I wouldn't know where to start, really. So it's been interesting to hear about how your project unfolded.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Well, Robert, it was a delight to meet Robert, to be honest, through this. I think it was mainly HDB, wasn't it? How we connected, I think, an HDB event. But the role of gatekeepers and organisations that already work with farmers is really key, Caroline.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to get my head around at this point, especially trying to sort of fit it into the structure of a PhD, is that I did my research design to look at 5 different case studies of agroecological farms around England, and was going to go and do 2 separate visits of a week each doing participant observation, and was going to use the sustainable livelihoods framework to help me gather that information, synthesize it, and then and my supervisor kind of threw me by saying, well, because of your positionality, then surely this is a PAR project. And so I'm slightly trying to retrofit what already feels like quite a good research design, and I'm trying to retrofit PAR into it. And so this is probably why it's sort of scrambling my brain a bit.
That's interesting, because you're kind of an insider and an outsider with a lot of participant observation. But there's not necessarily an action from that, or some kind of change. Like, so with the action groups with dairy farmers, it was like, well, the explicit point here is that we're going to all try and reduce our antibiotic use. There's lots of ways we can do that, but that's the goal. So there was a goal-orientated action. So if you haven't got a goal or some kind of social issue to address, and it's more just to understand what's going on in a certain phenomenon, then there is a I mean, I would say if you just try to understand what's going on, then that is participant observation.
You're
not trying to influence an outcome. Whereas action research, you really are. That's why it gets seen as like, oh, you're not objective. You're who is ever objective? The way we collect the data and choose the statistical tests and everything.
But at least with action research, you're sort of being very transparent about your positionality and your agenda, if you like, aren't you?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I might need to rethink.
And supervisors are normally like this kind of like debate. You kick back about what you think is most appropriate, and you talk to the community you want to work with, and they might have a preference.
Yeah.
Because there's a friend, Gwen Rees, who's actually junior vice president of BVA now, British Vet Association. She was doing a PhD at the same time as me, a similar subject, but she was doing participant observation on farms to understand how the antibiotics were being used. Whereas I was like, nah, don't do that. I want to do action groups. So come up with very different research outputs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That's been really helpful.
I need to zap people back now.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'll give a quick announcement.
Thanks, Robert.
26. And welcome, Toyin. I think you've come in at breakout rooms, so everyone will come back in a second.
Okay then, thank you. Sorry joining so late, traveling today.
No worries. Yeah. Right, let's close rooms. It's definitely easier in Zoom doing breakout rooms.
Stakeholders.
Yay, welcome back. Sorry for breaking up. No doubt, excellently interesting conversations. If anyone was actually keeping time, my 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 20 seconds. My 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Oh, echo. Right, I think we're all back. Okay, so what brave volunteers are going to share maybe what they've come up with so far? I'm very conscious it wasn't much time, so it's whatever you've got.
I can start, Lisa, if you want.
Yes,
since otherwise I'm not going to get this together if I wait any longer, I think. So we talked about and we didn't get very far with it. Just to point this out, it's reasonably vague, but we talked about arable farming and reducing the use of pesticides. So we talked about making it potentially doing a first workshop or a similar, which is sort of like a workshop where we are trying to understand a bit more, potentially using the combi model of behavioral change, looking at opportunities and motivations of farmers and things like this, just to sort of like understand where we are at. And then perhaps and then we have a big gap in the middle, just to say this, where we're not quite sure, but then in the end have some sort of knowledge dissemination event. We were sort of like just stopped when we had the discussion, well, what are we actually trying to achieve here? Are we trying to just gathering the knowledge? Or are we actually trying to change something? And then how would we go on about it? So we kind of like didn't quite get that far, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's sort of like what we got. Sorry, that's not a super amount.
Great start. This is not a full ready proposal in 15 minutes. Absolutely not. But just to say, actually, you've hit a nail on the head here, which what makes participatory action research different to doing some participatory or co-production techniques is what are you trying to achieve? Like, what is in it for those farmers? And maybe the pesticides and arable farm, you could do a very similar farmer action group model. Be like, right, everybody's using pesticides to some degree, hugely variable reasons why and how. This is the target. We want to get down to reducing pesticides, maybe near zero. And you could use a similar approach. But yeah, thanks for that. I think there's a hand. Where did the hand go? Put the hand up.
Sophie had a hand.
Go on, Sophie.
Hello. Yeah, it was just saying that. Could I go next, please? Because I'm barely clinging on to the information I've just gathered.
Go.
Okay, great. So we picked point 3, which was around improving farm productivity whilst reducing negative environmental impact and supporting new entrants, people into farming from diverse backgrounds. We came up with a research question, which was around does introducing minoritized groups to work on your farm lead to better environmental impact? And then the stakeholders we thought that would need to be approached was DEFRA, farmers themselves, And then groups like Ag Futures, BVEDS, and Culture Roots Collective for kind of accessing those minoritized groups. And then we spoke about understanding kind of baseline farming practices and holding and providing training for people from these minoritized groups on farm to kind of get to know how the farm works, build relationships with the farmers themselves, and then also holding workshops then that, having gone through this training and this practice, what they perceived and what they would propose to do differently, and whether or not a farmer would take on board some of these changes or practices and how that would pan out over time.
I love it. Sophie, that's loads. When I jumped into your room, you guys are like, that's fantastic.
This was 5 minutes ago, Lisa.
Yeah, amazing. Get it down, get it down. And I actually, this would be a really good point, because you talked about environmental outcomes related to having, minority groups on farm. Really good case for long-term projects as well, to be able to track that impact. There's a short-term benefit from like bringing diverse people together, isn't it? But then if you want to be able to capture that quantitatively, whether it's like soil or things like that, then there's a real case there, isn't it, for a long-term project?
Yeah. And also just about kind of opening up those different strands across workforces as well.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Any other brave souls? We've got time for one more. Or maybe some challenges, things you're like, oh, how on earth do we do this?
I'll go, Lisa.
Go on, Daniel.
So in our group, we had one which was looking at unpredictable weather events and running an arable or livestock enterprise, droughts and floods. So because this is a quite sensitive thing, because you might have droughts or floods in the future, one of the key things that we were thinking about was, how do you go about not scaring farmers? Because this is quite sensitive. And how do you go about convincing farmers who say maybe climate change is not real? It's just happening in cycles.
Yeah. Oh my God, good questions. I might actually, Robert, do you want to come in here? Pass that one on.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's an awful lot of things farmers could be doing, and a lot of it we sort of know what we should be doing. And thinking of things like weighing calves and whatnot, but it just doesn't happen. So it's getting the right things to the top of the priority list so they get done, isn't it? Is the issue.
I think the point I made in that situation was that if you've got a farmer in that drought flood cycle, they probably have got an even higher amount of stress than normal, and mental health can be a real concern in those situations. And it's how you bring a positive contribution without adding to their burden.
Yeah. And this is where I'm again biased, but the peer-to-peer approach is so important here, and something I didn't expect when I was doing these kind of approaches is the support that other people you give to each other. Like, we're peer-to-peer here now, aren't we? And if everyone's going through this extreme weather event situations, hearing how others are coping, you're not alone. That's huge benefits for well-being.
Yeah, I mean, it's finding a way to get them all into the pub so they can all talk to each other, and then it can go from there.
Free food.
Yeah, free food is always good.
Yeah. But then this is where it then strays into, there's a peer support there, helping people feel like listened to, going through something with somebody else, but then the risk of it going into what we call talking shop, or what's the point? Like, what am I going to get out of it? Like, what's it going to change? So that's the other thing you're constantly balancing. And it might be sometimes that these approaches don't really work for some scenarios. But you could turn it to be like, well, how can we help farms build resilience to these extreme weather events? Are there things that farms are already doing? That means they can cope in a drought. So you start turning it a little bit into how it can help, rather than a bit depressing. Flood drought. Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks for the brave souls that shared. Not an easy task, that one. I got a bit carried away. We've got a quick wrap up, but I just want to start with a little bit of a poll or a vote. Hang on, let me show screen. It's Mentimeter, so if you're familiar with Menti, you can just go on menti.com and put that code in. Oh, hang on. Slideshow. Oh no, not beginning. Panic. Yeah. Close your eyes. Oh, where's the poll? So go to menti.com and put that code in, or you can scan that QR code and it will take you to just one question where we would like to know what sorts of topics or skills development and activities you'd like to see more of in Bridging Fields. So we've had a few suggestions from people over the last few weeks that we're going to put on a networking event, or a few networking events, but what would you like to see more of? Okay, so if you can scan that, it'll take you to it on your phone, or you can just go to menti.com on a browser and put that code in. And then and if you're really not getting on with Menti, you can just put it in the chat. It's just annoying we extract information from the chat. So I'll move this over here so you can see what everyone's putting in. Oh, there we go. Yeah. And we're practicing what we're preaching here, Emmanuel and I, co-developing this as we go along with you as an academic community. Want this to be as useful as possible, and everyone's at different points in using these sorts of approaches and working with farmers who are trying to tailor it to all levels. More insights into farmers. So we can try and pinpoint certain activities that might appeal to you. So facilitated training and MI training, I feel like we could have a whole session, whether it's online or in person, on those things for sure. More insights into farmers' reality and everyday struggles. That's definitely try and come to a residency if you can. And go to like lots of different farm events. I mean, Robert, what would be your preferred event that happens in the like ag calendar to go catch up with loads of other farmers?
Things like the dairy events that there are lots of dairy farmers there. But any sort of on-farm meeting, they're always more interested in sitting in a room at the Royal College of Ag, whatever, aren't they?
Yeah. Yes. Farm walks, demo days. Yeah. So
just seeing best practice, whatever that means in whatever situation that is, there's always something to learn. And occasionally from worst practice, I've heard him say, well, I wouldn't do that. And certainly seen farms, one in Denmark that was an absolute disaster, how they'd built and designed this farm, and it's worth seeing to sort of not make the same mistake as yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like relating yourself to what else is going on. Yeah, so yeah, get out on farms basically. There's loads of free farm walks that the industry does. You can sign up to HDB newsletters, Farm Carbon Toolkit, Soil Association, Hospital Life, UK Agritech Centres do loads. Try not to favour anybody, I'm just on top of my head. IFA, Innovation for Agriculture, loads of them, but we'll share them on the page. Building relationships. Oh yeah, meet the farmer state walks. Keep research. Okay, loads to be going on with. We'll digest that and keep adding events in. So if you found out about this through some tenuous link, do make sure you're on the mailing list. That's where we share upcoming things, and we've got about 450 people now on our list of people who are interested in this, mostly researchers, but also quite a lot of advisors, farmers, other sort of groups. Some dates for your diary. We've got this online workshop. We're doing 2 more this sort of season. So one on the 20th of November, which is particularly called Not Another Survey, from extraction to collaboration. And we'll be joined by Claire Ottridge from Grounded Research. So she's going to be talking about top tips if you're doing surveys, how to communicate and disseminate them, and what else you could do otherwise. Because we do see a lot of surveys in the farming community. And then the 18th of December, we've got a couple of speakers talking about Indigenous knowledge and embedding that into research projects, essentially, and the importance of it. We'll probably hold a networking event towards the end of the year which will be between the community of Bridging Fields, and then I might try and organise one between certain farming groups and farmers, potentially. And Robert, I don't know if you're like farm discussion groups might want to have a little like get together with a load of researchers. I'm basically thinking of matchmaking, but just to hear like what are researchers doing, what do farmers want, basically, quite simple. And then the residencies, which are flagged up a lot. We have only opened registration of interest for the first one there at the next one, 20th to 22nd of Jan. But just so you know, those other ones are coming up. March one's particularly animal focused. June, July one's particularly plant focused. But it's clashing slightly with groundswell, so there might be a slight date change there. And the September one will be quite a data tech one. And these were themes that people have in the community have asked for. Oh, questions. Oh, gosh. Okay, go. Jessica.
Thanks, Lisa. I just wondered if we have access to the online workshops that have passed already. So can we have access to those materials and resources, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, they would have been shared on one of the last mailing lists as they're either on a YouTube or Teams link, the recordings, but I'll make sure it's all back together again in the next sweep up.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably better to have them all on YouTube, really. So Manuel, make a note that we need to sort that out because I think some of them are still housed on Teams. And there's also Farm Pep, where we were storing loads of it was just a free like agricultural kind of knowledge network, where we're storing loads of resources, not particularly our own, just stuff we think would be really useful for doing these sorts of research approaches. And then there's the LinkedIn group, closed LinkedIn group as well, which would be more than welcome to join. Sophie, yeah.
Hello, just super quickly, what's the residency on the 20th in January? And where is it?
So they're all at the RAU, the residencies.
Okay.
And that's the food system storytelling one.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And I think, Emmanuel, you shared that link of how to register your interest. Because we've got quite an inundation of interest. There's only 25 spaces at each residency. So we've got a slight selection criteria. Things like you can't ideally only choose one so that as many people get to take part as possible. And then there's different institutions that are going to be hosting these like one-day workshops across the country. So we're still fine-tuning those, but we've got one at Harper in April, one probably at Exeter and a few other universities. So we'll keep you posted with those if you're based at those institutions. And really, yeah, thank you all for coming along. It's been your afternoon, quite a maybe hectic Teams call. And thank you, Emmanuel, Robert and Kat, for sharing your insights and all your contributions. This was an artistic output from the residency in August from Vicky Bosquill, which I think many of you probably will relate to. But thank you so much. And any comments or questions, either email us or put it in the chat, and we'll see you all next time.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.